Denver 7 Now is sponsored by Ferguson and BAC Appliance Center, the best in bath, kitchen, and lighting for your home.
I'm Ann Trujillo with the latest from Denver 7. By now, you think you know the story. An investment banker with Colorado ties, a beautiful Caribbean island, and a mysterious death in a luxury resort. Well, like so many of you, we had questions about what exactly happened between Scott Hapgood and the hotel employee he's accused of killing. So Denver 7's Jacqueline Allen asked his family all about it.
A fiction writer couldn't have made this up.
On the tiny Caribbean island of Anguilla, it was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime family vacation.
This whole thing has been a nightmare.
Now, for the first time, Colorado family members are speaking out about what happened to Scott Hapgood.
You think when you're at a resort like this that you're safe, but you're not.
I was a victim, or my family was a victim here.
Scott Hapgood has been trying to tell his story since April while out on bond on a charge of manslaughter. His version: he took his family to a luxury resort where this man, Kenny Mitchell, knocked on the door to fix the sink. Hapgood says Mitchell then pulled a knife and demanded money. There was a violent struggle, Hapgood injured, but eventually holding Mitchell down until police arrived. Initial reports said Mitchell died from positional asphyxiation and blunt force injuries. Locals called him a hardworking family man, but there may be a different side. Before the attack, he'd been accused of rape by his girlfriend. Then, the toxicology report obtained by ABC News showed Mitchell may have actually died from acute cocaine toxicity. Authorities would not confirm that result, and supporters have not yet responded to our requests for comment.
Mr. Mitchell was responsible for his own death.
Hapgood's family says it's self-defense and doesn't understand why he's still charged with manslaughter. They describe a dedicated father and friend.
We're all just waiting for common sense to prevail here.
I've seen Trump help Americans in peril around the globe.
Hapgood's wife pleading for help on Fox and Friends this week, and President Trump responded, tweeting, "Something looks and sounds very wrong." Attention Hapgood's family hopes will help finally clear his name.
Great man whose life is being held hostage right now, and it's a tragedy.
Hapgood's next court appearance in Anguilla is in November. Family members here are in fear for his life because the island says it can't guarantee his safety. So family is hoping the case will be dropped by then. In Denver, Jacqueline Allen, Denver 7.
Tonight, we are hearing from the Aurora man shot by police inside his own home. He says it was all a misunderstanding. Andy Huff says he was getting out of his truck in front of his home on South Bahama Street when he saw someone walking toward him, and then he saw that person meet up with 4 others in the middle of the dark street. Fearing it was retaliation for a fight he had earlier that day, he ran into his home, grabbed a gun, and told his wife to call the police. Well, even after being struck by a bullet in the backside, he says he had no idea it was officers doing the shooting.
So I told my wife to call the cops. There's people shooting outside at us. I didn't want to get shot anymore, so I crawled into my garage because there's no windows. And then I called the cops myself and told them, "I need help. There's people shooting at me. I'm bleeding out in the garage."
Now, Huff has only been out of the hospital for a day. He was in pain when we spoke with him earlier. The officer's actions are still being investigated. Huff's attorney wants to see the officer who fired charged with a crime and intends to file a civil suit against the department. The Colorado Springs woman convicted of dragging and killing a tow truck driver will not be released from prison early after all. Deetra Ferries is 8 years into a 20-year sentence. In 2011, she interrupted a man who was trying to tow her SUV, jumping into the driver's seat and speeding away as that truck driver was still hitching the cables. Well, that driver became tangled and was dragged for nearly 1.5 miles before he came loose. Ferries was accepted into a community corrections program last month, but the victim's widow was not notified of the meeting, so a committee went back to review the case, and ultimately they decided against early release. There is new evidence tonight that fracking is far more dangerous in the short term than previously thought. The Colorado Department of Public Health says it has research showing there is a higher risk for nosebleeds, headaches, and dizziness to people living within 2,000 feet of wells in worst-case scenarios. That same study did also find no elevated risk of cancer or long-term health effects from oil and gas. Contact 7 Investigates' Jennifer Kovaleski has reaction.
We published a modeling study entitled Human Health Risk Assessment for Oil and Gas Operations in Colorado.
An oil and gas risk assessment causing uproar. The new study finds no long-term health impacts linked to oil and gas wells within 2,000 feet from homes. It finds potential, but rare.
There may be a risk of short-term health effects from oil and gas emissions.
An exposure to chemicals like benzene. symptoms like headaches, dizziness, and nosebleeds. The study uses emissions data from 2016 and is based on computer modeling.
This study confirms prior research as well as our findings out in the field that there's not an enhanced level of cancer.
The Colorado Oil and Gas Commission says it's taking immediate action. All pending well permits within 2,000 feet from houses will now face greater scrutiny. COGCC says that means 39 pending permits will undergo further review.
We should take a hard look before we approve new wells within that realm.
As for existing wells within that distance in the pre-production phase,
I will reach out to those operators to see if we can work with them.
The state says the study reinforces what it already knows. It needs to minimize emissions from oil and gas. The Colorado Oil and Gas Association, who represents the industry, calls much of the study positive.
Bears out what we've said, and there are no long-term impacts to health for people in Colorado who live near oil and gas.
The industry also says technology has changed drastically and wants to see actual data dictate policy.
Policy needs to be based on real data, actual data, not modeling, not hypotheticals, not theoreticals.
That was Denver 7's Jennifer Kovaleski. Now, the state says the big takeaway from this study, we need even more testing. This has been your Denver 7 On Demand update. Thanks for joining us, and check back here later tonight for another update. And download the Denver 7 app for breaking news and alerts. I'm Ann Trujillo.